This is a Sessions video tutorial, rotating features in Illustrator.
In this tutorial, I'll demonstrate the differences between the Rotate command and the Rotate tool. For this demo, I've got 4 squares, each with a different pattern fill, and you can reach those patterns in Illustrator by going to Window, Swatch Libraries, Patterns, Nature, Nature Animal Skins. Okay, we'll start off with the Rotate command first and then move on to the Rotate tool. As with most commands in Illustrator, you need to have something selected in order to do anything, so I'm selecting all of the squares by dragging out a selection marquee around them using the Selection tool. Now I could use the bounding box around the squares to rotate, but I'll get a little more functionality from the Rotate command. To start, I'll go to the Object menu and click on Transform, then Rotate. In the dialog box that shows up, enable Preview if it isn't already enabled. This will allow you to monitor changes to your selection as you adjust settings. First, I'll change the angle by entering a value of 10 and hit the Tab key to effect the change. Easy enough. With Preview enabled, I can see the squares rotate 10 degrees counterclockwise. If I entered -10, the squares would rotate 10 degrees in the opposite direction. So far, so good. Now I want to use a value of 25, and without moving the cursor out of the angle field, I can hold down the up arrow key on my keyboard and watch the value change along with the angle of the squares. It's a nice little time saver. Next is where the Rotate command really comes in handy. There are 2 options below the angle field. One is for objects and the other is for patterns. If I turn off objects, the squares return to their original orientation, but the patterns within remain at the angle I entered. Consequently, if I turn off patterns, the patterns remain at their original orientation, but only the squares move. Either of these options may be useful if you're trying to get a pattern to fit better within an object, such as a freeform object you drew. By the way, these 2 options are only available with objects that feature pattern fills. If you have a solid color fill or a gradient fill, these options will be inaccessible. The last option in the dialog box is the Copy button. It simply makes a copy of the objects at the current angle and overlays it over the original objects. We can repeat this rotation option for a more interesting effect. I'll turn off the pattern fills from the squares and apply just a black stroke to them so you can see what happens more clearly. At this point, I just have the angled squares selected, so now I'll go back to the Object menu and click Transform. But this time, instead of Rotate, I'll hit Transform again. What I have now is another copy of the squares, but angled 25 degrees from the copy of the squares I just made. You can start to get an interesting design going as a result of this. There's a shortcut key command for Transform again. Press Command+D or Control+D on Windows. Hold these keys down together with the copy selected, and it keeps making rotating copies of the squares. Here's a few examples of what results from using other shapes with other angles. With a bit more work, these can make some really interesting backgrounds for illustrations. Okay, I'll hide these layers and show another one to show off the Rotate tool. I'll use a circle to start off with. It's filled with the peacock pattern from the Animal Skins pattern palette. The Rotate tool will rotate an object just like the Rotate command in a bounding box can, but the true power of the tool comes from its ability to rotate other objects around a central object, and in order to show this off to you, I've already positioned a smaller circle just above the larger one. With everything at the ready, I'll select only the small circle and then click on the Rotate tool. Because I have Smart Guides enabled, I can move the Rotate tool's cursor directly over the center of the large circle. Although it's not clear, a small center label shows up when over the circle's center. I'll click once on it, and I'll move back to the smaller circle. Now, I'll click and hold down my mouse button and then drag around. As I do this, the smaller circle rotates around the larger one. This is all well and good, but what would be really useful is if I could make copies of the small circle around the larger one. To do this, I'll undo what I've done and return the circle to its original position. I'm keeping it selected, and I still have the Rotate tool activated. I'll find the center of the large circle again, but instead of clicking on it, I'll hold down the Option key while I click on the center. For those on Windows, hold down the Alt key and click. In this familiar looking dialog box, the only thing I'm going to change is the angle. A value of 20 should suffice. Rather than click OK, I'll hit the Copy button instead. And now, I'll do the old Transform Again command once more with the keyboard shortcut of Command+D or Control+D on Windows, and I have instant copies all around the larger circle. And that's it. Notice how the pattern in each of the smaller circles is angled differently. Uncheck patterns in the dialog box if you don't want that to change. I hope this tutorial proves useful in helping you create more effective designs and more intricate artwork.
Did you like this video? Then subscribe today to stay up to date on our channel or follow us on Google+, Twitter, and Facebook. Visit sessions.edu for more info on classes and admissions. Also, don't forget to check out the links to free downloadable content in the description. Thanks for watching.